the Son of God, given a masculine tendency, right? And the moon, a woman, you see, being receptive, etc. Um, and so there's a balance, if you get the point. If you get the point. Now, you know that that's anthropomorphic in its nature, but all creative things are actually in the nature of the womb. You know, so all things come through the gates of heaven only through the womb. This is why, like in ancient Central and South America, you will have the sistrum or the ankh, and also on that side you also have the ankh. So the ankh is a geometric construction of the uterus, the fallopian tubes, and the birth canal. So that is that is a geometric construction of the Holy Cross, or the cross of the Son that brings life. See, so you have, and even when you deal with the great circle for instruction, the church is designed like that. And so the uterus would be the rostrum, and you would have what is called a cinquefoil window constructed, and that would be above or behind the rostrum. When the sun shines, it would also do what you would call a cycle position or cycle placement, and it's actually a clock and the rostrum will be the reference point. And then on both sides you would have the pews, those the fallopian tubes. And then the aisle is the birth canal. This is why most of the time when you see the old churches, if they didn't leave, if they didn't dress the doors or the gateway, and they usually would never be a single door, would usually be a double door. So that would represent the masculine and feminine side.
It is also the opening,
yes,
if you will, because I was just on a show where we talked about that, and the vestibule, they would call the vestibule, was also significant of Vesica Pisces.
Yes.
The ithacus that many Christians ride around on the back of the cars to signify they're Christians actually is the sign of the uterus or the womb, the opening.
Of course. And this is also why very often, if they don't use say, if they don't use what you call valuable or what you call precious woods for the construction of the doors, if there's ordinary woods, according to how elaborate they make the great circle or the church, right? And understand the church is the cross.
Right.
The church is not the building. The church is the cross. All right. They will paint the doors red for blood. You understand? You know what I mean? And then of course the priest goes around and blesses the people with water. You get the whole point? Yes. And the cinquefoil, which means 5 lights. So this is why, like you'll see in your churches, the cinquefoil window will usually be in like a flower form, with either 5 points or either 12 or 9 or 7, but generally 5. But within that construct, you will always see the 5 cinca or 5.
And
of course, that's the gate. That's the gate.
Symbolic, and that's the thing. There's a lot of symbolism that
in the architecture
that's been covered up and over with this sense of supposedly spirituality, which is really symbolic of other things that are more natural.
Let's talk about this. All right. This is why the priesthood will not explain to the masses in general that the symbolisms are often taught in anthropomorphic format. So when they're talking about, say, the house of David, Jesus comes from the house of David. When they're talking about the house, they're talking about an estate. They're talking about the land, inheritances, generations of transference of customs and values, etc., both corporal and incorporeal. And this is, again, why we're talking about land, because people's concepts when they're talking about land is simply the aggregate soil. And it's not limited to that.
Which is why has been so important to separate us from our inheritance.
Of course, this is what is called birthright theft. And this would be expressed in the book of Genesis. Notice the chapter, right? 25. 2 and 5 is what?
7.
All right. So now you got Rebecca, you got Isaac, you got Jacob, and you got Esau.
Mhm.
They'll say Jacob,
Jacob.
but it's Yakub, right? So Yakub, but that's anthropomorphic. That's talking about birthright theft. That's talking about an inheritance. And then they make the story about Isaac being blind, and then Rebecca under influence of others helping to deceive Isaac so that the birthright or an inheritance does not go to the rightful heir.
Right.
This is exactly the anthropomorphic story of what's happening to us on Midgard and what we're dealing with today. And this is expressed even right into today with the Unum Sanctum operations where the Pope of Rome declared us dead or corpse. And so the people don't even look when the people see the 14th Amendment, right, operative in Northwest Africa and used around the world. It never dawns on them the birthright theft expression of Rebecca. Then when you talk about Matawaka, so Matawaka is rewritten in history as Pocahontas. Now remember when John Rolfe and John Smith were competing for her, etc., under the Powhatan Confederation of the South. This is why they took her to England, murdered her, and came back and set up Jamestown. And that's why you got the King James version, Jamestown. You know, so then they start the aristocracy of the hybrids claiming to be Americans. You see the whole point? And then they named Matawaka Rebecca. See, they're telling you it's in history, but if you don't know what you're looking at, you don't see it. But those who know exactly what they're looking at. It's quite difficult to get our people here in the North out of the mystery mentality that the priesthood has created for them. However, what you see taking place now, because remember, everything that is expressed in the heavens ends up expressed on earth. And so as above, so below. So this, you have hex alpha. And of course you have imbalance. But then when you bring balance, of course, not unlike, say, casting shadows, after a while you see forms and then you can make it out. Then the people that were once blind now see. So they see the hands of man in all of these affairs that they've been blaming on a mystical devil. And so the priesthood is sore afraid now because the people will find out that they've been lying to them for generations. And that the mystical devil, we're not talking about dark spirits and lights in the concepts of people. We're talking about the reality that manifests in the physical form. So the illusions of the world. So let me show you the illusions of the world. You know, so the land, the physical land, or the organic inheritances, lands, etc., is substituted with an illusion referred to as the corpse or the dead. Uh, the hybrids refer to it as the 14th Amendment. The modification of fatwa, constitution given to them by the Honesty Confederation to bring them into the rules of civilization at the North in treaty. And that would be known as the Constitution for the United States. Now, of course, they did what or continued the Unum Sanctum Wars, or what is known as the Spanish Inquisition. And understand the word Spanish is a contemporary word that was made up to cover up Moorish history. So when you hear them talk about Moorish Latin, the language, they won't say Moorish Latin; they'll say Spanish. Are we clear? Mm-hmm. When they talk about the Moroccans of the islands, the Taino and the Arawak tribes, Carib tribes, they'll say things like Puerto Rican or Latino, rather than say that they're Moros. Do you understand? And many of them who are afraid to tell the real history won't say that they're Moros. They'll say we're African and Indian. Do you see those two terms, African and Indian, rather than say they're Moors? Then, of course, the Indian issue comes from ancient Sinde, or the Naga that come up from Sudan and Nubia up into northern Asia, or what you call the north, and establish what is now known as Sindh, which is artificially referred to as India or Hindustan. See? So Hindi or Hindi, and this we get Hindu, Hindi, Hindu, India. See the corruption? And so to refer to the Naga, who on this side as Indians, that's how the Moors on this side began to be called Indians, when actually there's no such thing. If you want to tell the truth, just say Naga or Sindhi or Dravidians. Like for instance, like if you say for instance, I'm gonna do this sometime when we're out because it'd be good experience for you. We'll go to some places where they have so-called Indian stores, where we also buy those samosas and stuff like that. And just one of these times when you hear them talking with the people and they say that they're Indians, and just say, I know you're not Indian. I know that you're Hindustani. I know that you're Sindhi. And watch them treat you different with more respect. See, because you're not basically here in order for them to be safe and not abused. They go along with that, but they know that's a fraud. But that would be a good experience with you because it'll also tell you that they know. And that the unum sanctum operations is not just here. However, they're more awake than our people are here. Do you understand what I'm saying? But when they see that with you, sometimes some of them will tell you some more of your own history. Do you understand? Because our people, basically, when they're talking about African history, it doesn't dawn on them Sindhi. They keep thinking just on the lower part of the continent. They don't even think Iberia. So when they don't think Iberia or Phoenicia, they think Europe. And when they think Europe, they think in hybrid. They ain't thinking Nefertiti's daughter. No. They're not thinking what they see in the Bible, Queen Dodo, daughter of the king of Tarik, which they also use in their rituals in their secret societies. Really? And so they're still talking about Africa. Like example, again, we'll go again. Remember when we took the people to the Masonic Lodge in Philadelphia? Mm-hmm. All right, so the first rooms they take the people to? To the Moorish room and to the Iberian room. Both of them was Moorish. And they made exact duplications of ancient temples. Exact duplications, and that's where they hold their major meetings. And these people, also, that's why the Mummers Parade, dealing with the fall of the Moors, January the 1st, that's why they end the parade right there at their lodge. And as a matter of fact, that lodge in Philadelphia, that's where George Washington closed the lodge. Mm-hmm. And so they have a statue of Lafayette and George Washington at the front corner, just facing or standing on the front corner. And then, of course, City Hall is right across the street. And it's designed exactly like a mosque with a parapet at the top. And, of course, they got the cornerstone in a grave pit. People come from all around the world taking pictures of the cornerstone down in the grave pit with a brass rail. And our people walk past there all the time and don't even know it's about them. See, because when the people think that they're black, they think it's an African identity of some exclusive particular Africans from Negrodina and Colordifia and Blackadonia. No, they do. Because remember, this is their training. So it never dawns on them that even what they called blackface when they marched is about the fall of the Moors. And also Boabdil Khalifa giving up the Alhambra so that the Constantinians would not burn it down. And of course, April Fool is where they promised that they was going to let some of the women and children go into war at Granada. Oh, really? And they put them on the ships and then burnt the ships, and they call that April Fool. And people That's the origin of April Fool. Huh. Yep, a lot of women and children were sacrificed, burned on ships.
And these were
That's
Moorish.
April Fool.
These are Moorish women
That's
and
you.
children.
That's you. And a lot of our women, in the history, even a lot of the mental problems that we have in relationships, where a lot of our men don't feel really loved or trusted by their women. It is really because a lot of our women would stand off or be rejected to protect us from getting killed. Truthfully, and in the history, it becomes an idea or an energy of rejection when it is actually an attempt to protect. See how it twists? And then they use the codes noir of the Franciscan Brotherhood. So the codes noir is now known as the Christian Black Codes, which they've been using to destroy our families and to separate us from the land. And this is also in your more modern operations of politics, why the birth certificate, the marriage certificate is claimed by the Pope, where they claim the womb and claim the eggs. And then with the birth certificate is used to claim the eggs that hatch. And then they make their bonds on those instrumentalities. And this is how they do human trafficking through bondage on the stock market. And so people think the bonds is a chain on the wrist that they stopped using in the 1800s when actually they're in operation right today, and it's called U.S. Treasury bonds.
Yes.
It's really what it is.
And we have stocks and bonds.
And the people are the stock. This is why when you look at, say, if you look at the Clinton papers, and them also doing or floating. Now you notice how they always talk whenever they're doing buildings or big projects, they'll say floating bonds. Floating. What is floating? Ships.
Everything is admiralty.
Yes.
Yes.
And even when women break the water, and then you go into the black codes, the Christian black codes, and you'll see that the hospital is in collusion with the corporate state. And hospital determines the condition of the child in relationship to the mother and makes a determination whether or not they'll be free. It's written. No, it's written. It's not even hidden. Meaning, like, look at this. Here you have a written document, right? Called Christian Black Codes coming from Codes Noir, where the correlation between the corporate state and the hospital is very clearly stated. And our people will be talking about, ancient history and slavery period and ancient Egypt, and won't even use the modern Christian Black codes that's been used to tear our families apart. And it's clearly written. Do you see the corruption? Let me see if I don't know if it's in. Do you have the birthrights books? Birthrights taken from the Moors?
Is that one of yours?
Yeah, it might be. I might have some of the Christian Black codes in there. But anyway, you can in your own time. You can
link up for Codes Noir.
Codes Noir. Yeah, Codes Noir.
Do you want me to read some of them?
That's the Franciscan Brotherhood, and so you have the Black codes.
Yeah,
and you can also then you correlate that to the Christian Black codes of 1724, because they're absolutely derivative. Because remember, they change names slightly or titles slightly to do the same thing, and our people think it's something different. As an example, like many of your communication companies that are sanctioning people now, where the people think that they're all separate, all of them is CIA. And the CIA answers to the Circle Church and the Chancery. Circle Church and Chancery answers to the artificial Queen of England, and then the Queen answers to the popes of Rome and the bishopric of Rome, and that's your operation. So all of your not yours, but all of the so-called courts here at North America are actually governed from England. Yes. And all of them have there's an insurance company for every court. And actually the magistrates who are claimed to be judges aren't really judges. They're administrative clerks who have a QSIP number that also has a bond, and it's actually they actually get what you would call a stock payment after every year for how many indigenous people they can convict as felons.
Article 4 of this says Negroes placed under direction of supervision of any other person than a Catholic are liable to confiscation.
Now you see why our people think that they're Christians. We're talking about Constantinian Christians. Remember, the European hybrid uses Christianity as a front when they're really Constantinians. Do you understand?
And then here's something. Article 6. We forbid our quote unquote white subjects of both sexes to marry with, in all caps, the blacks, under penalty of being fined and subject to some other arbitrary punishment. And then it goes on. But I'm saying,
read it out. So because remember, this is what's going on.
Okay.
That our people remember. Look at this, Dr. Naila. Our people, to be diverted from looking at this or recognizing that these rules came right from the church. People keep forgetting this is coming from the church, from the priesthood, right? Do the audience a favor. Read 1 to 6.
Okay, Article 1 decrees the expulsion of the Jews from the colony.
So who do you think them Jews are? Now you understand?
Okay.
The colony, expulsion. Who's the real Jews? The Sabians. Who's the Sabians? The Moors. You see the beginning of your abuse? Mm-hmm. That they also call you blacks.